Why the left calls conservatives Nazis and racists. Picture this. You post a simple opinion online. Nothing violent, nothing hateful, nothing extreme. You say, secure the border. Merit over quotas. Voter ID makes sense. And within minutes, the replies show up. Nazi, racist, fascist, no questions, no counter-arguments, no attempt to engage what you actually said, just labels. If you're conservative, this isn't rare. It's routine. And after a while, you realize something important. This isn't about disagreement. It's about silencing. Now, let me be clear, before anyone twists this, I'm not talking about every liberal voter. I'm talking about the activist, media, and institutional left that drives the narrative and enforces it. That distinction matters. So the real question is this: why does the modern left reach for the most extreme moral accusations possible instead of debating ideas on their merits? That's what we're breaking down today. This topic isn't abstract to me. I grew up as a military brat. I spent about 10 years of my childhood living in Germany, not visiting, living there, going to school there, growing up surrounded by the scars of World War II. This wasn't history in a book. I walked concentration camps. I stood at memorials. I heard stories from locals and veterans who lived through it. You don't leave places like that confused about what Nazism really was. It wasn't a meme. It wasn't a political insult. It wasn't shorthand for disagreement. It was organized, industrial-scale evil. At the same time, growing up during the Cold War, I learned about communism too. The Berlin Wall, the Iron Curtain, entire populations trapped, silenced, and controlled. Different flags, different slogans, same outcome, authoritarianism. And here's something that doesn't fit modern narratives. On military bases as kids, we didn't divide ourselves by race, black, white, Hispanic, Asian. Nobody cared. We were military kids. That was it. We rode bikes, played sports, explored abandoned bunkers, got into trouble together. No grievance hierarchy, no identity scoring, no obsession with difference. That unity was real. Later in life, as a soldier and combat medic, that lesson stopped being philosophical. It became real. In combat under fire, everything political disappears. Gunshots, shrapnel, blast injuries. Everyone bleeds the same color. Everyone screams the same way. Everyone wants to live. Skin color doesn't matter when you're cutting clothing off to find an arterial bleed. Background doesn't matter when you're calling in a medevac. Beliefs don't matter when you're trying to keep someone alive long enough to get them out. I've held dying men from every walk of life. And in those moments, dividing people by identity isn't just stupid. It's dangerous. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I know what division looks like when it turns deadly. If this feels familiar, stay with me, because the part most people miss comes next. Let's clear something up. Cultures exist, values exist, traditions exist. Ignoring that reality creates real problems. Pretending every culture is interchangeable leads to bad policy. That's observable reality. But that's not what we're dealing with here. What we're seeing now is identity being weaponized, not to solve problems, but to shut down debate and enforce conformity. And the most powerful weapon in that system is one word: Nazi. Calling someone a Nazi is the nuclear option. Once that label is used, everything stops. The person is no longer someone with ideas. They're morally radioactive. And once someone is defined as evil, you don't have to listen to them. That's the point. Now, here's what actually matters. I don't care where historians place Nazis on a political spectrum. What matters is what they did. They censored speech. They crushed dissent. They subordinated individuals to the state. They divided people into approved and unapproved groups. They used moral panic to justify control. Those are authoritarian behaviors, and when those behaviors appear again, no matter who uses them, they should concern everyone. So arguing endlessly about labels misses the point. Authoritarianism is the danger, period. Here's the pattern we see over and over. Speech restrictions for your safety, deplatforming to protect democracy, social punishment for dissent, institutional pressure on belief and behavior. Those aren't liberal values, they're authoritarian tactics. So instead of confronting that reality, projection happens. Border enforcement becomes Nazi-like. Election integrity becomes fascism. Defending self-defense rights becomes extremism. Here's one example you've all seen. One group protests and causes damage and gets called mostly peaceful. Another group protests calmly and gets labeled extremist. Same action, different narrative. because the label decides the outcome, not the behavior. This isn't theory. This is how power works. If the Nazi label doesn't land, the next move is automatic. Racist. Disagree with a policy involving race? Racist. Question a minority politician's record? Racist. Support colorblind, merit-based standards? Racist. Once that label is applied, the debate ends. You're no longer discussing policy. You're defending your character. And the hypocrisy becomes obvious when you look at black conservatives. Thomas Sowell, Ben Carson, Tim Scott, Candace Owens. Their facts aren't refuted. They're attacked. Because independent thought breaks the narrative. This isn't random. It's systematic. Here's the playbook. First, label the opponent. Nazi, racist, extremist. Second, collapse all nuance. Third, demand silence or apology. Fourth, justify punishment or exclusion. Then move on without debate. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And if you've experienced this, stay with me, because here's how you stop playing their game. These labels work because they bypass logic and hit emotion. Nazi triggers historical horror. Racist triggers moral guilt. People freeze. People self-censor. People apologize for things they didn't do. Meanwhile, real issues get ignored. Crime, borders, inflation, free speech. If your opponent is defined as evil, anything done to them becomes justified. Censorship becomes protection. Riots become righteousness. Doxing becomes accountability. Political persecution becomes justice. History shows where that leads. So what do you do when the slur gets thrown at you? Don't apologize. Don't defend your character. Don't chase moral approval. Use clarity. Ask them this: what specific policy makes me a Nazi? Then say this: if you want to debate policy, I'm here. If not, we're done. Refuse the frame. Redirect to substance. If they can't debate ideas, that tells you everything you need to know. Germany taught me what happens when societies divide people into moral categories. Combat taught me that humanity unites under pressure. The constant name-calling isn't accidental, it's strategic. But free societies don't collapse overnight. They erode when good people stop speaking plainly. They call conservatives Nazis and racists because it's easier than debating ideas they can't win on merit. So don't retreat. Don't self-censor. Don't accept the lie. Call it out. Debate facts. Demand honesty. And vote like freedom depends on it, because it does. What's the worst time you've been smeared as a Nazi or racist for a reasonable opinion? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who's tired of the games.